other day when I went to Theresienstadt, I felt that what I was talking before, that I had cut myself off from my past, wasn't really true. Because when I walked through that little museum and I saw all the exhibits, I was very moved. To come into the archives, and when the man pulled out all the cards with the names, and I saw my my mother's and my sister's name there as dead, it really upset me. When you see it black on white, it makes it real. And then I saw my own name saying that I'm alive, that I'm a survivor.
Ima, for me as an Israeli, it's a bit difficult to understand what it was like being a Jew in those days in Vienna, in those pre-war days.
At first, we lived as ordinary citizens, you see, until Hitler marched into Austria. Only then, it happened practically overnight. As the Germans marched in, the Nazis came out with their uniforms, and the streets were full of Nazis, and the persecution started practically straight away. We were not allowed to go to school, and they closed the Jewish shops, and the Jews were beaten up in the streets almost from the beginning. And gradually they took everything away from us, our homes, our businesses, and they deported the men, and later on we had to wear the yellow star.
Couldn't you not wear the yellow star?
Yes, we could not wear it, but there was a death penalty on that, and you know, people are afraid. You don't do things that you're not allowed, and if you look Jewish, then you cannot do a thing like that.
Ima, tell us about Theresienstadt.
Well, Theresienstadt was a ghetto, not a concentration camp. Later in the end it became a concentration camp too, where they killed people. But at first, when we came there, it wasn't so bad. The young people could work, and they managed to get enough food from various places. And we still had a social life, because men and women were together in the ghetto. Although there was a curfew and everybody had to be in the house by evening, I cannot remember exactly the time. And there were performances, and there was a cafe there, and shops, although we couldn't buy anything. So at least it kept us alive for a time, until we were deported.
You had a boyfriend there, didn't you?
Yes, and I almost got married to him, but he was deported. And he went with a transport of 5,000 young people to Auschwitz. At the time we didn't really know what Auschwitz was.
How come you were separated from him? Why didn't you go with him?
Actually, I tried to, and we were not allowed to join the transport because we were from Vienna. There was a whole group of people who wanted to go with their boyfriends, and they didn't let us. It was only Czechoslovakian transport, only Jews from Czechoslovakia, and they all were sent to the gas chambers. It was really the cream of the Czech youth.
When you were in Auschwitz, you were young, 18, a young woman. Did you do anything in order to feel more feminine, or was it completely out of the question?
Well, first of all, even if I would have wanted to, I had really nothing to make myself look pretty or more attractive. We had no clothes. We wore some old dress, striped dress. We had no comb. I never even had a mirror to look into. We didn't wash. I had no comb. So, and then nobody really thought about it, because we had other worries. We were hungry, and we felt dirty, you know. But there were some young girls who managed to get friendly with the capos, the ones who were in charge with us. There were some men in charge of us, And they got everything. They got nice clothes and makeup, good food.
You had to pay, of course.
Well, they lived
That's
with
nice.
them, of course. But it was accepted there. There were very few.
What did you do when you
Very
had a
few
period?
girls like that. I didn't have my period there.
Why?
I don't know if maybe they put something in the food, or maybe because we didn't have proper food, so it just stopped by itself. I really don't know.
Did you mind?
But we nobody.
Did
no,
it make
no,
any
of
difference?
Of
It's
course,
like a sign of...
we didn't mind. We didn't mind at all because it would have been very awkward if we would have had it, because we had nothing to use. So
But,
it was a relief, really.
Yeah. What kind of clothes did you wear?
I had a striped dress in Auschwitz. I'm not talking now of the ghetto, where we still had our own clothes, where things were different. But I'm talking of Auschwitz and Stutthof, where we had the striped dress. Only when we were sent to work on the farm did we get different clothes. We got a skirt and a sweater and a blouse, which had a star painted on it. The back and the front, yes, which we couldn't take off.
Did you ever manage to wash your clothes or clean them?
Well, depends. Not in
Auschwitz?
Never.
Auschwitz.
No, we couldn't change. We had nothing to change. I didn't even have panties. I just had a dress and nothing else.
For months, only one dress?
Yes, I had all I had was one dress and a pair of wooden clogs. That was all the clothes I had. And not only me, everybody.
Ima, I know that there were Jews in charge of you in the camps.
Yes, they were all young girls mostly who were put in charge of us, and they were using their position to treat us pretty bad.
Could you understand their position?
I don't know really. It's difficult to judge them. We all hated them.
You know, I wonder how much you do remember.
I'm sure there are many things that I have forgotten. For example, I remember one scene when we were all standing in the street there, and the women were screaming, and everybody was terribly afraid. But I don't. Things flashed through my mind, and I can't remember what it was. And I've been trying for years, and it just doesn't come back to me. And I don't think it was a dream. And I have a scar in the palm of my hand, and I have no recollection of that either. I really don't know when I got it or how.
Ima, after Auschwitz you were sent to Stutthof,
Yes.
weren't you?
We were sent to Stutthof, and there, that was actually the same kind of camp as Auschwitz. It was an extermination camp. But luckily we didn't stay very long, and all the people who were in good physical condition were sent to a farm. My mother and my sister remained behind, and I never saw them again. One morning I was called out, and I thought they were following me, and when I turned around they didn't come after me, and that was the last I saw them, without saying goodbye or anything.
I've heard that people were reduced to a state of animals.
Well, you can't really call it that, because you see, people, when they were in a state of starvation, they lost all their will to live. They became very apathetic, and they just lay down and died. But if you mean that people behaved badly, that's another thing. Many did. Maybe it was their personality from the start, who knows. Some people went and stole from the neighbor the last piece of bread. But not everybody did that. One thing I remember vividly, one day when we were going out of the camp to fetch the morning coffee, we passed a group of British prisoners of war, and one of them put something in my hand. When I looked at it, it was a tin of sardines. When we came back to the camp, me and my friend were very happy, but we didn't know how to open the tin. We had no opener. So we tried with stones and everything, we managed to open it.
Ima, what was it like to be really hungry?
It's like a pain, and you cannot think of anything else except your empty stomach. It's always there, no matter what you think about or what you talk about. You're always aware of it.
What was the menu on a typical day in Auschwitz?
Menu. We got some watery soup for lunch and slept into a bowl without a spoon, without anything. This was some water with some leaves floating in it. And in the evening we got a piece of bread with a spoonful of jam, which had to last us for breakfast too. Nobody, of course, could keep it overnight. Everybody's so hungry they just ate it up quickly.
Was it because of hunger that you never liked us to waste food?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's... I cannot stand if people leave food in the plates.
Is that why you always eat the food we leave?
Do I still do it? I don't think so.
Once in a while. Yeah, you still do.
It's a habit. It's a bad habit. I'll try not to do it anymore, okay?
Doesn't bother me. When you told us stories about the Holocaust when we were kids, it seems as if you tried to protect us from the real horrible things. It didn't sound so bad when we were kids. Like
well, I tried not to tell you things that I thought you were too young to hear. And I censored most of the stories, you see. And maybe I didn't want to remember them either. You see, a lot of it is buried.
Is there any horror story that you can give me now?
Well, one of the most terrible memories is the train ride from Theresienstadt to Auschwitz, which I don't even remember how long it took, but it was very bad. We were terribly crowded into cattle wagons, and we had to sit one on top of the other, and we were closed in. There was only a tiny window on top. There was no air, no water, no food, and some elderly people just died, and wherever they died we just sat on top of them because there was no room even to sit. And when we arrived in Auschwitz and they opened the train, people just fell out, dead bodies. And it was really, that was one of the most terrible memories.
I know that in the camps most people tried to cling to something. Some became religious, some left religion. What did you cling to?
Nothing particular, just hope that I'll come out of it alive. I know many people talked about life after death and all kinds of things, but I wasn't particularly interested in that.
Were there any moments of happiness?
Well, real happiness, not. But when we talked about the future a little bit, and sometimes somebody did something, like there was a woman who had a very beautiful voice, and once I remember in Stuttgart we were all sitting and she was singing songs, and then for a moment we forgot everything and just listened to her.
You know, when I was in the army, I had maybe 1/100 of the feeling of being completely lost in the crowd because of the uniform, etc. Wasn't it very horrible to be completely anonymous in the camps?
But that's what I wanted to be, just to fade into the crowd, not to be seen too much. That was one way of surviving. Understand?
Yes. Do you remember any of your friends?
Over the time that I was there, I had various friends in various places. You see, on the one hand, you made friends quickly, but on the other hand, you didn't want to get too close to people because you were always sent from one place to the other. We never stayed long in the same place, and we never remained together for a long time. So we knew it was painful to be separated again and again, so we were afraid to get too attached to people. When we were sent back to Auschwitz, I happened to be in the sick bay because I had frostbite on one foot. And all the people that were sick were put in a separate truck. When we arrived in Auschwitz, our truck was put on the side, and I don't know why, but I had a feeling that it's not good to be in the truck, so I managed to jump off and join the others. And it was good that I did that. It saved my life because all the others went into the gas chambers.
Did any of your friends become Muslim, walking skeletons?
Yes, some did. And once when I was sent away to another camp, and I came back, and there were people who I wouldn't have recognized if they wouldn't have called my name. And even then I didn't recognize them. They had so changed. That was very sad.
Did you ever know what day or date or month it was?
No, we didn't know unless we were sent from one camp to another. Then we knew the date. But otherwise, we didn't really know. We had no newspaper, no radio, no nothing.
Didn't you even remember when it was your birthday?
Yes, I knew my birthday, because that was very shortly after we arrived in Auschwitz, in the camp, in a family camp, and there we still knew, but later not.
Do you remember that certain birthday?
Yes, I remember. It was my 18th birthday, and I was still together with my mother and my little sister, and they prepared something for me from the rations they got, gave me an extra piece of bread, and it was a great thing. I didn't even want to take it, but because they must have gone hungry.
How long did it take until you felt at home here, in Israeli?
Well, it took me quite a while, at least until I spoke Hebrew, and then I was okay. I can't really tell you when I really felt completely at home, but more or less. The trouble was I was very much alone here. You see, I had no...
But you weren't alone. You had the family here. Your uncle, Nathaniel.
He wasn't much help. When I came to Israel, I went to visit him and his wife, and he didn't give me any real help. I don't mean financial help, but he didn't try to help me to settle down, to make plans for my future. I would have liked to study something. He and his wife, they had absolutely no understanding for somebody who had just been freed from imprisonment. I'll give you an example. I went to work for 2-3 days on a farm outside Netanya. He lived in Netanya at the time, and I earned some money. So I went into town and I bought myself something to wear. I remember it was a skirt, and I had a perm, and I was so happy. So the first time I had earned some money and I had been able to spend it all by myself. And when I came home to them, they said, "How could you spend the first money you earned? Why didn't you save it?" They had absolutely no understanding, but I cannot really blame them, because how could anybody understand?
In everyday life, do you have any associations connected to what you went through in the Holocaust?
Not too much. Sometimes I think about it, but if something reminds me of it, but usually I don't think too much about it. Only directly if I read books or if I see movies, then I remember.
How do you feel about German products?
I'm using them now. I haven't got any feelings one way or the other. If they're good, I use them. I know there are many people who don't.
And German people, youngsters and people who were old enough at the time of the war?
I'll tell you, there was a time when I didn't want to have anything to do at all with Germans, but lately I accept them again, and especially I met quite a number of young people, and I became quite friendly with them. Older people, of course, it's a different thing. I always think, you know, what did you do at the time when I was
Do you ask
in
them,
camp?
or...?
Oh yes, I've asked them too.
Don't you feel that there's collective guilt involved in it?
It's difficult for me to say. I don't... There is, but still you cannot keep on blaming the young people for something that happened before they were born. Right?
Oh, that's what you think. It doesn't matter what I
That's what
think.
I think. That's my personal opinion. I know many people won't agree with me.
No, I do, actually. Do you ever think of us children going through the Holocaust with you or without you?
That used to be one of my nightmares when you were small. No, I don't think of it so often. But I always pictured you there next to me, and you being taken away from me. And or you being very hungry and I had no food to give to you. I thought about it often.
In a way you contradict yourself. On one hand you try to forget, to lead a normal life, and on the other hand it seems as if you can't stop talk about it to us children and to other people.
Well, you see,
How do you cope with it?
I have never really forgotten. It was always very much with me, but I tried to live as normal a life as possible over the years, and I didn't talk about it for many years. Only, you know, if you ask me any question, I tried to answer. But lately, I've begun to talk about it much more, and I find it is good for me to talk about it.
Emma, you told me that you felt no revenge and no hatred after the war.
I really didn't. All I wanted to do is leave Germany, start a new life, and be a normal person again. I really didn't feel that I should waste my life and my energy in thinking about revenge. Or maybe not even consciously. I just wanted to get out of Germany and start anew.
I find it very strange, you know, to accept the fact that you have no hate inside you. Maybe not revenge, but hatred.
I don't think I have. I just haven't got it in me. That's my personality. Does it make sense to you?
Not really, but I didn't go through it. It's different.
All I wanted to do is start a new life. Without being burdened by the past.
You talk about the whole subject very freely, very openly, as if it happened to somebody else, very unattached to it. How come?
I see myself like outside myself, if you know what I mean. You know, as if it happened to somebody else at the time when I speak about it.
But how do you feel about talking to your own children about it?
I think it's very important that I speak to my children about it. I always did, as you know. You remember Sally, my friend from England. She never told her children a thing, and I think it is very bad. I don't know what kind of a life they can have as a family. I think it brought us much closer together. Don't you think so?
Yes.